Mishnah today, Mishnah 19. We're almost finished with the second chapter. I think after this we have one more Mishnah to go, maybe two. And this one is from Rabbi Elazar. I'll put it on the screen for you. Here we are. Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, have a shakud lilmod Torah. You should be diligent to learn Torah or in your learning of Torah. Vida mashe tashiv la'apikoris, and you should know what to respond to a heretic. We'll just finish the rest of it, but we're not going to get to it. Vida lifnei miyato amel, you should know before whom you toil. And v'ne'eman hu ba'al malachtecha, and your boss, so to speak, is your employer is faithful. She yishalem loch schar pu'lesecha, he will pay you your reward for your work. Obviously referring to Hashem. Okay, so Rabbi Elazar tells us to be diligent in Torah study, and he follows it up with knowing what to respond to an apikoros, to a heretic. And you could take it separately, you could take it together. We'll do both. So hang on, there we go. Okay, so we'll start with just in general the idea of learning. The Tiferes Yisrael tells us that if you want to be successful in learning, he actually views this Mishnah as the different parts are related to different aspects of what's important when you are learning in terms of what you need to do. So the first thing he says is to be diligent. We call it diligence and hasmada. Hasmada is really to continue, keep at it. So you have to review. Not only do you learn, but you also have to review. If you don't review what you did on a regular basis, this is every day, you're going to forget what you learned. So number one is to be diligent in continuous and reviewing what you have learned. The second part, he says, which is going to be related to the knowing what to respond to the heretic, is that a person has to also learn in depth. You can't just read it, skim it, and expect to know it. But you have to really understand what you do. And he gives you seven things you should be asking when you are learning something. We're probably familiar with most of these in terms of the who, what, where, when, why. So he says number one is who. You know, who are we talking about? Who is it? What are we talking about? What is this thing? To whom or about whom? Is it who again, who, not only who is it coming from, but who is it going to, or about who are we talking about? When is this whatever it is talking about? Where, how, and why? Now the why is really also like because you can hear a piece of information, but other than if you have no idea what context it fits into, then it doesn't really do you much good either. And then he says you have to check to see that it doesn't contradict things that you've learned before, because now you have to put it into context. So you've told me a piece of information or whatever it might be, a teaching, and now let's go sort of review everything I know from before and see where it fits in and does it contradict what I've learned before. And also, when we learn Torah, right, we say, is there an extra word, right? Why was this word written, right? The analysis of text is also important, and especially in the Torah itself, but we do this even in the commentaries as well, that what wasn't the people don't just write things for no reason. In the Torah, for sure, every word is important, every letter is important. So why is it there? And if it is there, what does it mean, right? So those are all things that it's just you can't just gloss over it. You have to go into depth. So that's we'll leave the third one for later or for tomorrow. Another point Rabbi Yonah points out is when a person is learning, you also should understand how to, as we said, how to respond to an apikoros, how to respond to a heretic, which means that we do have a concern that there are people out there who are not just non-believers, but actively causing other people to not believe as well. It's one thing if you are yourself, but if you're causing everyone else. So if you're not able to respond to those claims and deceitful statements by someone else, then other people will learn and they're going to learn from this other person. They're going to learn all kinds of negative things, and then that's going to be obviously a problem. So you have to be able to respond to it as well. Now, what is an apikoros? So generally, an apikoros is someone who denies, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, it's someone who denies the oral Torah or distorts it to change the halacha. It changes the law. The term, most commentators say the source of the word comes from the word hefker. Hefker means to be totally like without any owner. It's ownerless. It's meaningless. It doesn't have anything to it. So this idea of this person, he's saying nothing counts. There's no value. He says that the Bartanura points out like an apikoros, he treats the Torah like that. He treats the Torah like it doesn't have any value. Or he makes even himself. He makes himself like he doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about he may an apikoros, by the way, is not just is that a person who knows and says anyway, denies it anyway. It's not someone who's ignorant. You have to, in order to be an apikoros, I forgot who the famous statement by is, you can't be a person who's what we call an Amoritz. You can't be ignorant and be called an Amoritz. You have to be, yes, it also is, some say it comes from Epicurus. Yeah, it does come from the Greek philosopher Epicurus. Some say that is the source. But it is interesting that in order to be really an Epicurus, you have to be knowledgeable. Being ignorant just means you're ignorant. That's it. You don't know any better. We have a lot of those too. The other important thing about the apikoros is it tells you to know what to respond, and therefore it's only we're taught, and Rambam says this specifically, is we have to learn to respond to them, but we don't initiate conversation. And he quotes a Gemara also that we're not going to go over to someone who's a heretic and start engaging them in debate. That there's no real value for that. It's only if they're causing it and they're creating an issue, then we have to respond, and we have to know how to respond. And part of knowing how to respond, interestingly, is that you can't just, I think Midrash Shmuel says this, you can't just repeat over what someone else says. I heard someone say something, and now you're going to repeat it over. Even if you saw it, maybe you read it. If you don't understand it yourself, you're not able to debate with someone else, right? Because if you're just repeating by rote what someone else has told you, then as soon as someone gets into any kind of analysis and discussion, you're going to be lost because you won't know how to respond. And that's why it's telling you is you have to learn in depth. You have to learn to be able to respond in a way where you understand the Torah yourself. So that way, when someone does ask a question that's not black and white, you're going to be able to respond to it. Another thing the Gemara tells us is that in terms of responding, the heretic that we're talking about responding to is someone who's not Jewish. A Jewish heretic is much more difficult to respond to. A non-Jewish heretic is one thing, but a Jewish heretic is, in other words, talking again, someone who knows something and has rejected it and says, I don't care, I'm not going to follow it, and I am rejecting it. That person is much harder to convince. And therefore, it's almost like don't waste your breath. Finally, for today, Rabbi Twersky points out that Rabbi Twersky had a degree in psychology and psychiatry, and he says, studying secular philosophy is something that is dangerous. And he says you don't really know, you don't need it necessarily to respond to someone else. And we can learn it from Rabbi Yehoshua, who we talked about before was one of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that he was the one whose mother had brought, when he was a baby, or even when he was in the womb, his mother would go to the Beis Medrash, and she brought him from the time he was a young child to absorb the Torah study. He was the one who was sent to Rome to debate the philosophers that when they had these debates. He was the one that they sent. And the Gemara debates, actually, I'm sure Rome was also with Greeks, that he debated 60 philosophers. And he was also involved with the Emperor Hadrian. Anyway, one of the examples was that they asked him, how can someone believe in God if you can't see him? So Rabbi Yehoshua responded, and he said, look, it's easy to see God. Just look into the sun. and he tried to look into the sun, but he can't look into the sun. You go blind. So he couldn't do it. So he said, how could I look at the sun? The light blinds me. So Rabbi Yehuda said, look, the sun is just one of God's many creations. It's compared to God's light, it's very small. If you can't look into the sun, how can you expect to look into God? You can't be able to see God. So that was his response. So he didn't have to give them a deep philosophical response. He was able to respond to their question in a different way. And his knowledge of Torah basically gave him the ability to respond to them. And that's an example. And Torah study will give us that ability to respond to effectively to heretics, but we have to know the Torah from ourselves and understand it. And we'll hold it there. Have a good day, everyone. Have a great day.